In Missouri, where rivers twist like serpents and the Ozark Hills whisper secrets to the wind, some stories refuse to die. They're the kind told in hushed voices around campfires, where children listen wide-eyed and elders stare into the distance, remembering. From forgotten mining towns to Civil War battlefields soaked in sorrow, the Show Me State is haunted, not just by ghosts, but by memories too heavy to fade. This isn't just a place on a map, it's a landscape stitched with tragedy, mystery, and a magic as old as the soil. Today we're bringing 12 chilling Missouri legends back to life. These tales, rooted in history but wrapped in myth, still echo across the hills and hollows. Each one carries a grain of truth, and a shadow that stretches far beyond it. Some things were never meant to be forgotten, and some refuse to be. Legend 1. The Screaming House of Union, Missouri. A door that opens without a hand. A scream that pierces the night but comes from no throat. In the quiet town of Union, Missouri, stands a house that has earned its name through sheer terror. The Screaming House. The legend began in 2001, when a man named Stephen LaChance moved into a modest home on Christina Avenue with his 3 children. It wasn't long before the walls began to speak, or rather scream. Doors slammed on their own. Cold spots danced through rooms like invisible predator. And worst of all, there were the voices unseen, unwelcoming, and growing louder each night. Stephen's accounts were detailed and chilling. Shadows creeping up walls, black figures watching from doorways, and whispers that slithered into the ears of his children while they slept. One night his son screamed that something with red eyes was watching him from the corner of the room. Another time, Stephen was pinned down by a force he couldn't see, suffocating under an invisible weight. Neighbors too whispered about the house. Some claimed the land was cursed, once home to violent rituals or unspeakable crimes. Others said it was the spirit of a woman who had died in childbirth, still howling for the child she lost. Paranormal investigators flooded in, reporting powerful electromagnetic fields, growls caught on tape, and sensations of intense dread. Skeptics chalked it up to stress or overactive imaginations. But Stephen eventually fled, leaving everything behind. And what makes the Screaming House so terrifying isn't just what happened, it's that even after exorcisms, investigations, and media attention, no one knows why. Today the house stands silent, but silence in Union, Missouri, is never a comfort. It's a warning. For those who walk past after dark, some swear they still hear it, a long tortured wail rising from inside the walls, as if the house itself is trying to tell a story no one dares to understand. A pistol behind closed doors, and a family fortune drowned in sorrow. In the heart of St. Louis stands the Lemp Mansion, a once grand estate built by beer barons, now known as one of the most haunted houses in America. The legend begins with the Lemp family, German immigrants who rose to power in the 19th century, crafting a brewing empire that flowed through the veins of the city. Their mansion, opulent and proud, sat above a network of limestone caves used to chill their famous log. But what should have been a legacy of celebration became one of darkness. In 1901, Frederick Lemp, the heir apparent, died mysteriously at the age of 20. Grief turned to madness, and in 1904 he walked into his office and ended his life with a gunshot. The tragedies didn't stop there. One by one, more members of the family followed. William Jr., Elsa, and Charles, all claimed by suicide within the same cursed walls. Whispers grew of a hidden, deformed son locked away in the attic, known only as the monkey-faced boy, who was said to have died alone and forgotten. And the house remembered. Visitors described cold hands touching their backs, lights flickering without reason, and the sound of phantom footsteps pacing upstairs. Doors slam shut, glass shatters, and sometimes, if the air is still, a mournful sigh seems to echo from behind a locked door. Tour guides speak of Charles Lemp's revolver, still lying on display, and of rooms where people refuse to sleep. Some say the spirits are trapped in a cycle of despair, reliving their last moments again and again. Others claim that something darker, something not human, feeds off the legacy of pain. Today, the Lemp Mansion operates as a restaurant and inn. Brave guests can spend the night, sip wine where grief once grew, and listen to the silence that hums with old sorrow. But if you stay long enough, Don't be surprised if you hear the creak of a floorboard, or a toast whispered in the dark to fortunes lost and fates sealed by sorrow. Legend 3: Zombie Road, Wildwood, Missouri. A path swallowed by trees, a silence broken by phantom footsteps. And somewhere in the dark, something waiting. Deep in the woods of Wildwood, Missouri, there lies a trail known as Lawler Ford Road, but to locals, it's simply called Zombie Road. It began as a route for workers near the Merrimack River back in the 1800s. But over the decades, it transformed into something else entirely, a corridor of shadows, where whispers of tragedy gave birth to legend, disappearances, accidents, murder. One story tells of a man struck and killed by a train in the 1950s, his spirit now doomed to wander the rails in silence. Others speak of a woman in white forever screaming for help that never came. But it's what comes after sunset that truly earns the road its name. Eyewitnesses have seen dark figures darting between the trees, too quick to be human, too solid to be shadow. Ghostly children laugh in the distance, their voices bouncing through the woods where no feet should tread. Others tell of pale, gaunt faces watching from the tree line, disappearing the moment light hits them. And then there's the story of the Shadow Man, a towering silhouette that appears in the middle of the road and vanishes without a sound. Hikers say their flashlights flicker, cameras malfunction. Some feel cold fingers brushing their arms, only to turn and find no one there. Skeptics blame it on optical illusions, the eerie acoustics of the forest, or adrenaline-fueled imagination. But those who've walked the trail at night swear it's more than just nerve. It's like the air is thicker, heavier, as if something ancient and angry is watching from just beyond the bend. Zombie Road is now officially closed to night traffic, guarded by signs and police patrol, but thrill seekers still sneak in after dark, hoping for a glimpse of whatever haunts the trail. Some come back shaken, a few don't come back at all, and in the thick Missouri woods, the legend lives on, because something walks Zombie Road, and it doesn't like to be followed. Legend 4: The Haunting of Jesse James Farm, Kearney, Missouri. A pistol's echo, a brother's blood, and the restless soul of an outlaw too famous to fade. In the rolling hills of Kearney, Missouri, sits the birthplace of Jesse James, the most infamous outlaw of the American frontier. But behind the legend of the man lies another tale, one soaked, not in gunsmoke, but ghost story. The farm, built in 1822, was once the sanctuary of the James family. It was here that Jesse spent his childhood, and here that Union soldiers raided the home during the Civil War, torching barns, beating family members, and setting the stage for Jesse's lifelong thirst for vengeance. But blood never washes clean, and the ground where Jesse grew up still holds that rage. Visitors to the site today, now a museum, report unsettling experiences. Cold spots drift through the house on hot summer days. Objects move when no one's watching, and in the room where Jesse's stepfather was tortured for information, some claim to hear screams, faint but unmistakable. But it's the figure of Jesse himself that causes the most stir. Dressed in old boots and a long coat, he's been seen walking the grounds at twilight, his eyes scanning the horizon as if watching for Pinkertons. Tourists have spotted a shadowy man vanish into the barn. Staff have heard heavy footsteps echoing through empty hallways, and once, a guest claimed to see Jesse's face in an old mirror, clear as day, before it cracked moments later. Historians say it's nonsense, that Jesse James died far from the farm, shot in the back by Robert Ford in St. Joseph. But others believe the legend of Jesse is bigger than his death, that his spirit returned home, to the place where his story began. The museum now runs historical tours, but always ends with a whisper. Not everything buried on the farm is at rest. And some nights when the wind picks up and the cornfield sways just right, you might hear hoofbeats in the dark, because for some men death is just another disguise. Legend 5: The Elms Hotel and Spa, Excelsior Springs, Missouri. Whispers in the walls, a woman who weeps for the dead, and laughter that echoes when no one else is laughing. In Excelsior Springs, just northeast of Kansas City, stands the Elms Hotel and Spa, a place built for luxury but remembered for ghosts. The story begins in 1888 when the original Elms Hotel opened its grand doors to the public. Famed for its healing mineral waters and roaring parties, it quickly became a haven for the rich and restless. But fire would strike not once, but twice. First in 1898, and again in 1910, reducing the lavish resort to ash and sorrow. Each time it was rebuilt, and each time something seemed to stay behind. Guests began reporting strange occurrences, a woman in a long gray dress wandering the halls, her face hidden but her sobs unmistakable. She's often seen near the old lap pool in the basement, where some say a child once drowned. Others speak of men in 1920s attire gathered in empty rooms, silent, still, watching, then gone. During Prohibition, the hotel allegedly operated a secret speakeasy in the basement, protected by corrupt officials and violent men. Some believe the spirits of those who met grisly ends in the underworld trade still linger in the shadows. Lights flicker, ice-cold drafts sweep through rooms. Guests awaken to find their belongings moved or hear knocks on the wall, always in patterns of 3. One chambermaid refused to clean the 3rd floor alone after feeling someone brush past her, only to find the hallway completely empty. A paranormal investigation team recorded whispers on tape, including one chilling phrase, "Don't stay here," yet people still do. Today, the Elms Hotel operates as a high-end spa and wedding venue. Its halls are filled with music, laughter, and luxury, but beneath it all lies a deeper current, something waiting, watching from behind antique mirrors and beneath old floorboards. Those who visit may find peace, or they may find the past, peeking from behind the veil. Legend 6. The Momo, Missouri's own monster of the Mississippi, a foul stench, a flash of fur, and 2 glowing orange eyes that haunt the bluffs above the river. In the summer of 1972, the quiet town of Louisiana, Missouri, was shaken by something it couldn't explain. They called it the Momo, short for Missouri Monster, and for a brief, terrifying moment, it gripped the state in a frenzy of fear. The first sighting came from the Harrison family. It was a hot July day when their children ran screaming from the woods, claiming they'd seen a creature tall, hairy, and reeking of death, standing near their treehouse. It held a dead dog under one arm, and stared with burning eyes from behind a curtain of tangled black hair. More sightings followed. Farmers saw something huge moving through their fields at night. Hunters heard guttural growls that didn't match any known animal. One man swore he saw it drinking from a creek, only to vanish when he approached. The sheriff's department launched an investigation, and local newspapers fanned the flames. Some feared it was a wild man, others said it was Bigfoot, but everyone agreed something was out there. Tracks were found, 3-toed, large and deep, and so was the smell, a rotting odor that clung to the air after every encounter. Locals began locking their doors, children were kept inside, and search parties combed the woods with rifles and flashlights, but turned up nothing. Skeptics pointed to mass hysteria, fueled by the era's fascination with monsters and the supernatural, but those who lived through the summer of '72 still talk about the fear, the way the dogs barked at nothing, the way the woods felt wrong after dark, and how Momo, for all its mystery, never truly left. The legend faded after a few months, but Momo became a part of Missouri's folklore. Today it's celebrated in local festivals and even inspired a low-budget horror film. Yet for those who remember the real panic, the legend isn't just about a monster, it's about the feeling that sometimes nature itself turns its eyes on you, and what it sees isn't always Legend 7. The Haunting of Stevens College, Columbia, Missouri. A ballet slipper glides across the stage without a dancer. A music box plays in a locked dorm, and in the dark of night, a girl in white twirls, silently in the shadows. At Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri, one of the oldest women's colleges in the country, some students don't just study history, they share their dorms with it. Founded in 1833, Stevens is steeped in tradition and in tales of the paranormal. The heart of the legend centers around Senior Hall, an elegant antebellum building that's witnessed over a century of dreams, heartbreak, and some say hauntings. The most well-known spirit is that of a young woman named Sarah. The story goes that she died tragically, some say from illness, others from despair, after a forbidden love affair. But whatever the cause, she never left. Students report hearing weeping in the empty hallways, the sound of soft footsteps just outside their door, and lights flickering whenever someone says her name aloud after midnight. In the old auditorium where rehearsals once filled the air with music and motion, strange occurrences persist. Props shift on their own. Cold drafts cut through heavy curtains, and once a dance professor swore she saw a figure pirouette across the stage when no one was there. In dorm rooms across campus, particularly in Robley Hall, residents have shared tales of whispering voices, objects moving unprovoked, and a presence that feels lonely. Some believe Sarah is just one of many spirits, residual echoes of the generations of women who passed through, each leaving a piece of themselves behind. Faculty tend to keep quiet, but some acknowledge the story. During renovation projects, workers have downed tools after hearing their names called by unseen voices. One electrician refused to return after claiming a pale figure appeared at the end of a hallway and then vanished through a wall. Skeptics argue it's stress, suggestion, or college imagination running wild, but at Stevens, tradition is strong, and so are the whispers. Today, students leave notes in empty rooms, dance alone in candlelight, or keep a small light on at night, not out of fear but respect. Because some souls don't haunt out of anger, some simply stay waiting for the next curtain call. Legend 8: The Phantom Soldiers of Wilson's Creek, near Springfield, Missouri. The thunder of hooves, the rattle of muskets, and the cries of men who never came home. In the rolling fields near Springfield lies the site of one of Missouri's bloodiest Civil War battles, Wilson's Creek. But long after the cannons fell silent, the dead refused to rest. On August 10, 1861, Union and Confederate forces clashed in a brutal fight that left more than 2,500 men wounded or dead. The lush green pastures ran red, and the Ray House, a peaceful farmhouse, became an impromptu hospital where limbs were lost and lives faded with whispered prayer. But it didn't end there. For over a century, park rangers, visitors, and Civil War reenactors have reported encounters that defy explanation. They speak of ghostly soldiers standing at attention under the moonlight, faces gaunt, eyes hollow, uniforms tattered with blood. Gunshots ring out in the dead of night, followed by the pounding of phantom footsteps across the battlefield. Some have seen a Confederate officer on horseback silently surveying the field before fading into mist. Others speak of cries for help near Bloody Hill, the exact spot where General Nathaniel Leon became the first Union general to die in combat. His spirit, some say, still rides, searching for a battle that ended long ago. Inside the Ray House, shadows move across window. Furniture shifts slightly. Visitors feel watched, especially near the parlor where wounded men once begged for morphine. One park guide claimed he heard a voice whisper his name while he stood alone in an empty room. When he turned, the air smelled of gunpowder. Scientists blame lingering trauma and the powerful emotional energy tied to the land. Historians chalk it up to myth, but those who've walked the grounds at dusk know better. They've felt the chill crawl up their spine, heard the low murmur of a drum, and sensed that the past is closer than we think. At Wilson's Creek, history bleeds through the soil, and on certain nights, if the wind is right, it marches. Legend 9. The Albino Farm of Springfield, Missouri. A gate rusted shut, a road winding into darkness, and a silence thick with secrets. Just outside of Springfield, on the edge of town, lies the legend of the Albino Farm. An eerie tale that has haunted locals for generations, shrouded in fear, folklore, and the faint sound of footsteps that don't belong. The real name of the property was Spring Lawn Farm, once owned by the wealthy Sheedy family in the early 20th century. It was a grand estate, a place of gardens, livestock, and serenity. But as years passed, it fell into decay, and with the decay came whispers. Teenagers began calling it the Albino Farm, spinning stories of inbred, pale-skinned caretakers who lived in the shadows, violent and territorial, said to chase off intruders with animal-like snarls and blood-stained hands. Some claimed they were victims of cruel experiment. Others said they were ghosts themselves, cursed souls trapped between life and death. Whatever the truth, people began to see things. Visitors who trespassed after dark reported being chased by figures with glowing eyes, hearing laughter echoing from the trees, or seeing shapes move behind broken windows. A local legend tells of a couple who went to the farm for a thrill, only for the boyfriend to vanish, found days later, his body bruised and cold, his mouth frozen open in a silent scream. The mansion itself, once elegant, became a burnt-out husk, the victim of arson. But the land, many believe, remains cursed. Even after its destruction, Strange sightings persisted, shadows without bodies, screams carried by the wind, and the overwhelming sensation of being watched. Skeptics claim it was just a breeding ground for urban legends, a mix of teenage bravado, mental illness, and neglect. But too many people saw something, too many left that hilltop with trembling hands, and eyes wide with something more than fear. Today, the remains of the farm are overgrown. Signs warn trespassers to stay away, but thrill seekers still creep through the trees at night, drawn by the legend's magnetic pull, and some never speak of what they found, because even legends built on lies can still bite in the dark. Legend 10, the ghosts of the Missouri State Penitentiary, Jefferson City, Missouri. Iron bars, stone walls, and souls that never escape. In Jefferson City, looming like a fortress over the Missouri River, stands the Missouri State Penitentiary, once called the bloodiest 47 acres in America. And behind those cold gray walls, the dead still whisper. Opened in 1836, this prison held some of the nation's most dangerous criminals, murderers, gangsters, and the hopelessly lost. It was older than Alcatraz and far more brutal. Riots, executions, solitary cells where screams went unanswered. Over 100 inmates were executed within its walls. Hundreds more died in violence or madness. And something stayed behind. Tour guides and visitors speak of unexplainable cold spots, doors that slam shut with no one near, and voices that drift through empty corridors, raspy, angry, or pleading. In death row, guests report feeling a weight pressing down on them, as if unseen hands are trying to drag them to the floor. Flashlights flicker, batteries drain, and in the gas chamber itself, some say they've seen shadows dart across the walls, or heard the final gasp of a man long gone. One of the most famous tales involves Cell 76, where a prisoner was stabbed to death by his cellmate in a fit of rage. Now visitors feel an oppressive presence in the space, violent, bitter, and watching. Paranormal investigators have captured EVP's electronic voice phenomena of moaning, shouting, and one chilling phrase, "I didn't do it." Some guards refused to return after night shifts. Others spoke of seeing figures walking the catwalks that vanished when approached. The chapel, once a place of peace, now feels heavy with sorrow. Some say they've seen a woman in white there. No one knows who she was or why she stays. Though the prison closed in 2004, it's far from empty. Ghost tours are offered, drawing thrill seekers from across the country. But many leave shaken, pale, unable to explain what they saw or felt. The Missouri State Penitentiary isn't just a relic, it's a tomb, and some prisoners, it seems, never stopped serving their sentence. Legend 11, the Devil's Chair of Kirksville, Missouri. A seat no one dares to rest on, a dare that goes too far, and a whisper that answers back. In the cemetery at Highland Park, in Kirksville, there lies an unassuming stone chair, weather-worn, covered in moss. But the locals call it something else. The Devil's Chair. At first glance, it seems like a curious old monument, a Victorian mourning seat, placed near a gravesite for loved ones to sit and reflect. But over time, the chair's reputation darkened. Stories spread of those who sat upon it and felt something grip their soul. The legend says that if you sit in the chair at midnight, especially on Halloween, the devil himself will appear, whispering dark secrets or tempting you with a sinister bargain. Others say you'll hear voices low, guttural, and full of hate, uttering curses in languages no one recognizes. Some report a freezing cold sensation, as if the stone is draining the warmth from their body or their spirit. In the 1980s, a local teen took the dare. He sat alone for just 1 minute before bolting in terror. Days later, he was found in the woods, shaken and rambling about, eyes in the dark and voices that wouldn't stop. Others have felt hands press against their back as they sat, though no one was near. One woman claimed that after sitting in the chair, her dreams turned violent, filled with fire and teeth. Skeptics laugh it off, calling it cemetery theater, a prank gone viral before the internet even existed. But groundskeepers have their own tales: flowers that wilt overnight near the chair, batteries that drain suddenly, and the unsettling way animals avoid the spot completely. Over the years, the Devil's Chair has become a local rite of passage. Teenagers dare each other. Paranormal investigators set up cameras, But the chair never moves, never changes, just waits. And those who sit sometimes don't walk away the same, because in Kirksville, Missouri, even stone can listen. And sometimes it listens back. Legend 12, the Witch of Hugginsville, Lafayette County, Missouri. A crooked tree, a forgotten grave, and the whisper of a curse that never lifted. In the woods outside the ghost town of Hugginsville, Missouri, lies the story of a woman who was feared in life and feared even more in death. They call her the Witch of Huggins. The legend dates back to the 1800s, when settlers in the area spoke of a strange woman who lived alone in a cabin deep in the forest. She kept no company, wandered only at night, and was often seen speaking to crows. When livestock began to die and children fell ill, suspicion bloomed like rot. The townsfolk branded her a witch. One cold autumn night, a mob dragged her from her home. The exact details are lost, burned by time and shame, but it's said they buried her alive beneath a crooked tree, her hands bound, her mouth sewn shut with black thread. Before the last shovel of dirt was thrown, she uttered a curse, eyes open wide, never blinking. And then the dying began. Crops withered, wells turned sour. Strange fires devoured barns overnight. One by one, the people of Hugginsville left, or were taken. By the turn of the century, the town was dead, but the tree remains twisted, blackened, and alone. Some say it's her grave, others claim she still walks the woods, her mouth no longer sewn, whispering her curse to those who wander too close. Campers report seeing a hunched figure lurking just beyond the firelight. Hikers feel hands brush their shoulders, only to turn and find nothing but leaves. At night, the wind through the trees sounds like laughter or sob. One group of paranormal investigators found their gear scrambled and unreadable after entering the site. Their footage, when recovered, showed a dark figure staring into the lens from just inches away. Locals leave offerings near the tree, coins, bread or salt, to keep her appeased. No one cuts its branches, no one speaks her name at night. Because in Hugginsville, there's no doubt, she was real. She died angry, and the ground still remembers.